So I'm Matt Holzaffel. I lead corporate strategy at Tamr, and we're about a 200 person company based in Harvard Square. Yeah, and also, so the way that we'll do the presentation is we'll go through about a 10-15 minute presentation, and then I'll hand it over to Katie Porter, who's one of our sales engineering leaders at Tamr, and she'll give you a demo of the actual software.
Hi,
we can hear you, Katie.
Hello. Sorry, I hadn't been bumped to the presenter yet. Hi, hello everyone.
All right, we have it. Go to the slides first, and then we'll flip over. All right, great. So and then the clicker. There we go. So I'll take you through what we do at Tamr, but first I thought it'd be useful to start with a personal story. And so before joining Tamr, I used to work at Dell doing procurement and supply chain strategy and analytics. And one of my roles there, I worked for this person, Greg, and he was trying to understand, when do we have big orders coming in? Because that's what he wanted to use in order to forecast supply and prepare supply. And so in order to do that, what he asked for is a dashboard that shows the sales forecast by customer. And we had the one-on-one to go through it, and he said, anytime by the end of the year would be great. And I thought, this is going to be a walk in the park. I'll have it to you by tomorrow, because it's just a simple dashboard of sales by customer, by product. And so I go to my desk, jump into the warehouse, do a couple of queries, and something doesn't quite add up. I start seeing these records where you have Goldman Sachs Group, different IDs, completely different forecast numbers. And I'm thinking, I can't put this in front of my boss and show them that we have two different versions of Goldman Sachs, and we don't know if they're ordering 40,000 or 625,000 laptops. And so send a few notes out, set up meetings in order to understand, how do we actually define customers here? Why do we actually see this issue in the data? It turned out we just hadn't come across that individual duplicate within the data. It hadn't been cleaned, so it was just a data error. I was still feeling pretty confident. All right, I'm going to clean these up, but now I'll have it to you next week instead of tomorrow. Go back into the warehouse, throw a few rules on top of my queries. I'm going to clean up these issues where I see these duplicates that I know it's the same customer, and I just want to count them as one. But then after I run the query, I see I have 2.5 million customers, and I look on the internet, and the internet knows how many customers we have better than I do. It says we only have 500,000 customers. And so continuing to kind of dig through, what could possibly be going on here, and then see, well, Goldman Sachs isn't just Goldman Sachs and Goldman Sachs Group. They also own companies like J. Aron Holdings. And that, is really in our world, just one customer. And so I need to clean that up as well. And so I set up meetings in order to figure that out. Like, why hasn't this been cleaned up? What are we doing about it? How should I approach this? And then ultimately it leads to, I don't really know when I'm going to have this analytic ready for you, because I really don't understand kind of how to clean up some of the poor quality issues with the data. And this kind of broad problem where people throughout the enterprise are trying to run a consistent and similar set of analytics just on their customer base. I mean, this is something that has been talked about for almost 10 years. SAP in 2012 launched SAP Customer 360, really with the goal of solving this problem, where everyone in the organization should know who are our customers, what are they buying from us. But still, 9 years later, we're still talking about this. This is the enterprise's white whale, the Customer 360. Everyone from SAP to NetSuite to Siebel to Salesforce continues to push this idea of, we can help you get that Customer 360, but for some reason the problem still hasn't been solved. And part of the reason for this is there has been a lot invested in solving this problem, but solving different areas of the problem. And so one approach to this is, let's integrate all of our applications and then ensure that every time a new customer record is created, all of our sources are synced. A necessary investment, but with just the number of data sources, you're almost never done integrating applications. And so what do we try next? Let's just put all of the data into a warehouse. And as long as it's in one place, then we'll be able to see any issues, do all the connection there, and then run our analytics from that warehouse. Likewise, there's the problem of, well, once we even have it in a warehouse, how do we segment it? How do we activate it? And so we buy a customer data platform. And then from there, we say, well, if we're going to be using our customer data, we really need to understand who these customers are. And often the best information about our customers isn't in our four walls. It's living on the internet. It's living in third-party sources like ZoomInfo and Dun & Bradstreet. So we buy that as well. And so many enterprises, they have one or multiple of each one of these tools in order to solve this problem. And really, what's stitching all of this together is the human in the loop. It's people in this room who are going to be taking data from some of these various sources, stitching them together for that individual analytic, and then coming up with their own version of their truth and their own answer, which often isn't reusable for the broader enterprise. And so there's still more work that needs to be done on this problem. There's still a lot of inefficiency just on this problem around Customer 360, where billions and billions of dollars have been spent in order to try to create this single source of truth of who are our customers and what are they buying from us. And because of that inability to answer that fundamental question, you still see things where analysts, sales operations, salespeople are spending time cleaning up data kind of at the point of consumption. And a lot of times the cleanup that they're doing isn't getting back into the broader enterprise data assets, which just causes further inefficiency and also leads to people not trusting the data or not using the data. One of our customers, a large retailer within the greater Boston area, said before using Tamr, kind of the water cooler talk was, our customer data is so bad, don't even try to use it. You're not going to get any valuable insights out of it, so don't use it. And so what our company does, what Tamr was really founded to solve, was this problem of the data variety at scale that ultimately leads to these broken and disconnected views of customers, where everyone in the organization is doing their own independent cleanup and analysis in order to get that 360 view. And so our fundamental differentiation is that we are applying machine learning to solving this problem. And so kind of what I outlined of applying rules to the problem, where whether it's an individual analyst or a developer who's just writing rules in order to try to solve this problem, when you take that approach, the problem is never over. You're never done writing rules. You're never done maintaining those rules. But with a machine first approach, what we've seen is that you could actually cut down on the human effort by over 80% by letting the machine do the work of figuring out the relationship between those different data sets and then do the matching of bringing them together, enriching them, and then creating that single clean view of your customers. And we've seen this work at some of the world's largest organizations. Companies, right in our backyard, like Staples and Analog Devices, but also large organizations such as the Air Force are using our technology in order to create those enterprise level views of those key data domains, such as customers. All right. Oh, back one. Whoop. All right. So what do we actually do? So what we give our customers is really threefold. And just to kind of connect this to some of the other talks that we've had today, really we're focused on that enterprise data layer. And so we're often working alongside a warehouse or right alongside major operational systems such as SAP and Salesforce, because what we're really focused on is cleaning up the data that hundreds or thousands of users are going to then be working with as part of additional data science initiatives or analytic initiatives. And so the way that we do that is by giving our customers really three key things. So number one is that Tamr ID. And so the retailer that I was referencing before, where the data was too messed up, nobody wanted to use it. Now what they talk about is, we have this Tamr ID that we use to describe our customers. And we can trust that Tamr ID to accurately represent who are our customers. And rather than relying on a third party or an external source for that Tamr ID, because they are owning and managing the process using our software, they have full control over those IDs. And if someone sees something wrong in the data, they can give feedback to the machine learning model. It will correct that and then ensure that everyone going forward has the right identification for that customer. The next key piece of this is being able to actually tie those customers to a broader data set. So in the case of organizational or B2B companies, this is hierarchies. When I know that I am working with, for example, a Staples location in Cambridge, I really want to tie that back to who owns Staples so that I could see the global relationship that I have with Staples. And depending on the work that I'm doing, if I'm a sales rep, I want to understand it at the site level and what I'm doing with Staples Cambridge. If I am an analyst, I want to understand what's our relationship with Staples as a whole. We give you the flexibility to drill down at those different layers so that you could have the right source of truth depending on your analytic. And then finally, enrichment. So exactly what I mentioned earlier on, the best data is often not in your four walls. We make it easy for you to just natively connect to third-party data sources and then correct, validate, and expand on the data that you have, so that if you're missing things like the address for this customer, or you're missing what industry does this customer belong to, you could get that data from a third party and then integrate it within our software. All right, I think the best part, we've proven this stuff works, and so less work, better data is really how we think of it. And so some of the customers that we're working with have reported everything from just having far fewer people who are manually doing this work, Santander 40 to 50, to just much better data at Analog Devices, over a 50% increase in lead to account matching. This is going from having someone hands-on keyboard looking at all of the records to having a machine doing the matching. They have a 50% lift from that. And then also working in the public sector with the Executive Office of Education, where for them, this is really about consistent and accurate reporting. If they're going to be making evidence-based policy decisions, they want to make sure that everyone who is responsible for that decision is working on the same set of data. So it's extremely important for them to really clean that up at this base layer and then enable that accurate and consistent reporting. And so that's what we're doing for them on data related to their students. And so with that, let's see how this actually works. Katie, do you want to run through a demo here?
Sure thing. Thanks, Matt. And I stopped sharing with the aspiration of hopefully letting people see the slides, but hopefully they can see my screen now.
All right.
Awesome. So thanks very much. And I think I missed my intro a little bit before. So I'm the head of strategic pre-sales at Tamr. And for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to be the head of sales at a mid-marketing manufacturing company. So on my team, it's very important for us to have clean, accurate, and curated data. And so that's why I've engaged with the Tamr Cloud. And when I log into the Tamr software, what I can see straight off the bat, if my laptop doesn't take off into airplane mode here, okay, is each of the entities that are important within my organization. I can see views of my customer hierarchy, my product master, and what I'm most interested in today, a 360 view of my customer base across multiple sources within my organization. So if I click into my catalog view of my customers, what I can see here is that I have 8,000 consolidated golden records across the multiple sources within the enterprise. I can see the individual golden records, and I can also click into these to see in even more detail how many sources are feeding into this unified view of this particular customer, as well as how recently this particular entity was updated. And so when I log into Tamr, I can see both the overview of my data as well as information such as the additional attributes regarding my customer data that might be available when I'm thinking about what analytics I need to do in order to make the best business decisions possible. Regarding that, I'm going to skip over, and apologies, I've got had to do a little Zoom Tetris with all of the different toggle buttons here. So when I'm in my day-to-day analytic platform, so as an example, we have click here, I'm looking at all of the customer data that I have. And before engaging with Tamr, this was a little bit of a mess. So we had about not quite 16,000 unique customer records. And I straight off the bat knew that that was wrong. And that's because we had multiple sources feeding into our customer 360. We had our Salesforce instance as well as our Marketo system. And the reason why we have these overlapping customer records is because they have not been well maintained in parallel, and they've needed reconciliation. So after Tamr, what I can see is that we've actually consolidated that 16,000 customers into a true 8,000 customers. And this is really important as I'm trying to make decisions regarding the alignment of account managers across my customer base. And so you can see that reconciliation due to the consolidation of information within my customers. So now I can next log into the designer component of the Tamr Cloud, because I need to actually update this view of the segmentation of customers across regions. And that's because I've recently undergone an acquisition. So I need to add that new Salesforce data set that I've recently acquired into my data flow. So in order to do that, I can just log into this step of adding data into my data flow. And let me just refresh here. So I'm back in my data flow. I can click into my little module card for adding new data sets in. I can easily access my connections, such as to GCS, go into my directory, and then see my newly acquired data set. I'll just quickly name it. Back out into the next step, and you'll see that my little to-do list within my data flow has automatically updated. So I know the next thing I have to do is to align this new data set to my customer data model. Now I'm going to quickly filter to this, oh, whoops. And I have to also add that data set to this module itself. So I can select that I want to add this data set into my customer data model. And now I can see that I have that new data set here. To map it into my customer data model, it's just a simple matter of dragging and dropping. And now I'm going to back out and review the rest of my data flow. So one of the really neat things about all of our experience at Tamr doing this customer mastering, as Matt has discussed, is that we've actually been able to templatize the solution for this customer mastering so that you don't have to start from scratch in designing those machine learning models in order to reconcile your data. So I actually don't have to change anything else in the rest of these steps. We're going to already use a pre-trained model that's going to work out of the box for your customer data, and is also going to gracefully manage the addition of new sources. So now all I have to do is click Run Flow, and then return back to my analytic dashboard. And then I'll just refresh my data to get that new information coming in from Tamr, reflecting my new data source. And now I can see that not only have I gained a huge boost in customer data from that acquisition, but once I look at it after Tamr mastering, now I can see that there's actually been a shift in my top 3 regions. So before the consolidation with Tamr, I would have assumed that California was my third most popular region, where in actuality, it's the second most popular. So now that I have this more accurate distribution of the customers across my different regions, I have to continue with my job of the day in terms of deciding how many new account managers I need in order to allocate the correct support to my customer base per state. So I'm going to look at Massachusetts as an example. So there's a pretty big gap here that I want you to look at between this blue bar, which represents the number of customer representatives or account managers that I had for this region before my acquisition, and this red dot that represents the number of account managers what I would have expected I needed after the acquisition of this new company. And the key thing here is this blue dot in between, which represents the actual number that I need, which is significantly fewer than I initially thought. So now I actually only have to hire 21 new account reps instead of 32 new account reps. And so what that means is that I've actually identified $18 million in savings in terms of the new account managers that I don't have to hire. So now instead what I can do with that money is perhaps apply it elsewhere in terms of hiring more sales reps, investing in enablement and training programs, anything else that might push my business forward. So you might be interested in terms of how exactly Tamr is achieving these results. So sometimes it helps to look at a specific example. So again, as Matt referenced, what we're really providing you is this Tamr ID, and that's really your trusted key to a particular customer entity. So that Tamr ID is going to be the same one that is linked to all duplicate representations of a customer within sources as well as across sources. And these duplicate records can occur due to things like an acquisition, as I experienced today, or due to fat fingering upon data entry, where you have a lot of problems with your data quality, such as I see here in the address column. And that's really a common issue that we see across our customer base that results in these challenges when trying to reconcile your data within or across different sources. And so in just a matter of moments, when I'm using Tamr Cloud, I not only have been able to recognize almost $18 million in savings, but I've also saved the weeks or months of manual effort of trying to align those source systems myself manually, which was the process before I engaged with Tamr Cloud. So now I can see I've got my 3 source systems feeding into my dashboard. I'm confident in the number of actual customers that I have, and I believe that I can move forward with my day, making the best decisions for my business on the best data possible. So now I'd love to open the floor to any questions you have for myself or Matt, or any comments or feedback about where you think Tamr Cloud could impact your business. And let's just see.